Hey everyone, welcome back to Zara. We're in my kitchen today, so that means we're gonna go in on some brands. I keep getting messages from all of you about all of these brands that are launching these sustainable collections that are more affordable. Any big brand that has a sustainable collection that continues to produce at their scale is not sustainable. They're greenwashing you. If they're not paying their garment workers, they are greenwashing you. If you're new here, I'd love it if you subscribed, stuck around for a while, hit that notification bell, leave a like and a comment. Also, I'm over on Instagram at Inspiro. The first one I want to talk about is actually Uniqlo because I've not mentioned them on this channel before. I noticed recently that Uniqlo has surpassed Adidas, which is the parent company of Zara, as the top, I think, fast fashion brand in the industry for like how much money that they made, which is crazy because Zara's dominated that market since they basically created the fast fashion business model. The issue with this is that even though Uniqlo is making all of this money, they still owe $5.5 million to garment workers they illegally laid off in 2015 today. So it's like, okay, you're making all this money, but the people who are making your clothes are still waiting for you to pay the money that you owed them like 6 years ago. And that's such a huge issue. And I think that goes to show, like, do they actually care about their workers? Do they actually pay their garment workers living wages? That's the first sign that a brand isn't ethical, and it's the first sign that a brand isn't sustainable, because you cannot have a sustainable business if you don't treat your workers ethically. Let's look at Uniqlo's sustainability page. I haven't actually seen this before. I like that this is all in green. They have an empowering woman piece, which this article definitely just tears that down. I know that Uniqlo produces so much and they have such a global market, right? Scale their production is one of the biggest red flags of a brand that isn't sustainable despite them claiming that they are. The next brand I want to talk about is Aritzia, which is super close to home because I used to love Aritzia. Like, I think every female Canadian grew up wanting to buy Aritzia and wear Aritzia as they like grew into their young adulthood. Even though I know that they're trying to incorporate more sustainability minded materials, they just have such large scale now that you can't say that even though they have high quality clothes that they're sustainable. They posted on their Instagram a while back about how they're officially carbon neutral, but it's only their stores and their offices and maybe their distribution centers. You can't be proud of being carbon neutral if you're not taking into account the amount of emissions used in your production process for the amount of clothes that they produce. A lot of comments actually call them out for that, which I'm really glad for. But again, that's just like another sign of greenwashing. Sustainable fashion is not an excuse to continue to consume. We should actually start by changing the way that we consume, the way that we dispose of clothing, all of that, before we can kind of address like sustainable consumption. No matter how much fast fashion clothing you own or sustainable fashion clothing you own, it's not really about that. It's about, one, our mindsets as consumers, how much we consume, how we are continuing to stay educated and continuing to hold brands and government accountable, like continuing to amplify these messages, continuing to prioritize social and climate justice. That is the stuff that is free to do, is accessible. We can't buy our way into sustainability, so no matter what you buy, like, what are you actually doing to make an impact in this space, in this conversation? I think they were called out for racism, both in the way that they treated their workers and treated people on the sales floor, and I honestly don't think that they ever addressed that, which is a huge problem. They have their suppliers code of conduct too, but who is enforcing them and who is testing for them? Let's also talk about Aldo. I got a few messages about them too because they're really pushing on this sustainability initiative that they have. Clean Step helps clean and filter polluted water, which literally means nothing. Does it mean that it cleans the water during the production? Does it mean it cleans the water when it still ends up back in the landfills? So Aldo Group also prides themselves in being the first fashion footwear and accessories company in the world to be certified climate neutral in 2018. They're extending their commitment to include all e-commerce and product transportation carbon emissions from production to end consumer. Doesn't mean that they are climate neutral. They're not taking into account the emissions from their production. This is pennies to them for what they can offset in terms of carbon credits. So show me that you're committed by offsetting your actual emissions, and then I'll maybe believe that you're sustainable. Next, let's talk about Zara. And they have so many things that they like to talk about, like water and biodiversity and the climate and recycling and raw materials and plastic. They've reinforced this commitment with a declaration to work on the reclamation plans of the textile industry on a global level. They're basically mentioning the same things together so that people kind of jump to a conclusion, but they don't actually say anything in this fluff. And that is essentially greenwashing for you. So the one thing that I did in my Instagram post about fashion waste, oil, trash, plastic is I went onto Zara just to see how many items they produce that have virgin polyester versus recycled polyester. Over 3,000 products right now that are made out of polyester. Only one of those items is made out of at least 25% recycled polyester. That goes to show you how much they actually care about sustainability, okay? 1 out of 3,000%. Multiply their 3,000 by extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, by the colors that they have in each of these styles, and think about how much of each of those they actually produce to meet the demands of their online sales and their store sales worldwide. Hopefully that helps you kind of visualize and get a better sense of the amount that they produce, and then the amount that they produce in a sustainability minded way that is actually just 25% sustainability minded. Apply that to the rest of the fabrics across all of their collections. This is just polyester. That's honestly all I really want to say about Zara in this one, but of course there's so much there. Lastly, we're going to talk about H&M for a quick second. They were also part of the Pay Up campaign, so I'm going to leave that linked somewhere. H&M sustainability page. It's so funny because I haven't looked at these pages in so long because I just don't care about these brands, right? Say change is at our core and now it's time to change fashion. Sure. They created their first ever 100% recycled cotton jeans. It's 2021. Why are you proud of that? They do transparently share all of their suppliers. I would be careful about that. Like, transparency is just table stakes. Like, it's expected. It doesn't actually mean that they're doing good. With H&M's recycling program, they say that they collected 29,000 tons of textiles in 2019. And the way that their program works is sort them into 3 categories: rewear, reuse, and recycle. So rewear means they can be sold as secondhand clothes, but again, a lot of secondhand clothing can't actually be sold and is exported to places like Ghana and the Continental market. Reuse, so old clothes that can be turned into other products such as cleaning cloths. And then recycling, so everything else is turned into textile fibers and used for things like insulation. They are basically saying here, without actually saying it, that when they're recycling the clothes that you drop off in H&M bins for their coupons, it's not actually being used in a circular way again, made into new clothes. It's still downcycled, so it becomes lower quality, where it's made into insulation. So yeah, like that is a great way to use it for something else, but it doesn't mean that they're actually truly recycling with the circular, with circularity in mind, basically. I'm going to leave it at that because honestly, looking at this stuff is just so emotionally draining and honestly traumatic for me, because I'm like, how are these brands getting away with this? I'm going to leave more resources and links down below for each of these brands that you can look more into, because I think it's really important for us to empower each other and as many people as we can to learn more, to improve all of our sustainability literacy so that we can actually figure out when brands are greenwashing. I think we have the responsibility for the clothes that we wear on our bodies to think about how they've impacted people along the way before they reach, the stage of being owned by us. There's so many people involved along the way, and then even down the line, like when we're done with this, where does it go? We have the responsibility, if we are owning these things, to think about where they end up going And even if it doesn't affect us, maybe it doesn't end up in a landfill near us, it's still ending up somewhere on the planet. And I think all of us have a responsibility to take care of our planet. I have so many other videos that talk about a lot of the moving pieces in the fashion system and how they're so connected to everything else. But I hope that you enjoyed. I appreciate you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye everyone.